Welcome back to my channel, Rare Coins Shop. If you're excited about finding hidden gems in your pocket change, you're in the right place. First, we're going to uncover some of the most valuable and rare US coins that could be worth a fortune. Let's dive in. We're diving into the world of the 1960 United States 1-cent coin, yes, the humble Lincoln penny, but with a twist that could turn that small copper coin into a life-changing treasure. Stick around, because the story behind the 1960 penny isn't just about age, it's about mystery, rarity, errors, and a surprising value that could make your jaw drop. You don't want to miss this. The Lincoln cent has been an American staple since 1909, celebrating the legacy of President Abraham Lincoln and featuring the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse starting in 1959. By the time 1960 rolled around, the U.S. Mint was deep into producing billions of these coins annually. But that year, something unusual happened that would make the 1960 penny stand out in numismatic history. The United States Mint issued two major design variations of the 1960 penny, the small date and the large date. That's right, there are two different versions of the 1960 cent, and while to the untrained eye they might look almost identical, the difference is real. The variation comes from the size and placement of the numerals in the date. On the small date version, the 0 sits slightly higher, and the numbers are more compact. On the large date, the digits are fuller and easier to distinguish. Now, why does that matter? Because collectors are obsessed with varieties, especially those that were not widely known or recognized at the time. These two versions created an immediate buzz in the collecting world, and people began hoarding rolls of 1960 pennies, hoping to strike gold, or in this case, copper. What adds even more excitement is that these variations were struck at multiple mints, Philadelphia and Denver. The Philadelphia versions carry no mint mark, while Denver coins bear the D mint mark just under the date. So right off the bat, we have four types of 1960 pennies: large date and small date from Philadelphia, and large date and small date from Denver. Of these, the 1960 D small date is often considered the scarcer of the group, especially in high grades. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some coins from 1960 have been discovered with minting errors that make them ultra-valuable. These errors can include things like double die obverse, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, or even coins struck on the wrong planchet. Double dies, in particular, are one of the most famous error types. On a double die coin, parts of the design appear twice, slightly shifted, creating a shadow-like appearance. If you find a 1960 penny with clear doubling on the date or Lincoln's features, that could be a huge clue that you're holding something special. And if the coin also happens to be a small date with a mint error in pristine, uncirculated condition, then you're talking about serious collector gold. Another factor that makes this penny so special is condition. Most pennies from 1960 were used in everyday transactions and tossed into drawers, jars, and glove compartments. Very few were preserved in mint condition. Those that have been graded by professional coin grading services as MS67 or higher are incredibly rare. And if the coin has a known error or a rare variety on top of being in top grade, well, that's where things get very exciting. Coins like this are more than just copper, they're historical artifacts. The Lincoln penny has long symbolized the everyday strength of America's people, and coins from 1960 are little time capsules from a period of growth and change in the nation. They're tangible links to the past, but in some cases, they can also be very valuable investments. Now, let's get to the moment you've been waiting for. While a common 1960 penny in average condition might only be worth a few cents, those rare versions with perfect condition, unusual features, and mint errors can reach extraordinary prices at auction. And yes, one very rare, extremely well-preserved, error-bearing version of the 1960 Lincoln penny has been valued at as much as $200,000. That's right, $200,000 for a 1-cent coin. It's hard to believe that something so small could hold such incredible value, but that's the magic of coin collecting. You never know when a tiny detail or a slight mistake at the mint can turn a piece of change into a life-changing discovery. So, if you've got a stash of old pennies lying around, or maybe an old coin album from your grandparents, go back and check those 1960 cents. Look closely. You never know what you might find. Second rare coin, we're focusing on one of the most iconic and often overlooked coins in American history, the 1963 Lincoln 1-cent coin. That's right, a humble penny from over half a century ago could be the key to unlocking a massive fortune, and you might even have one sitting in your old coin jar without knowing it. Now, we all know the Lincoln cent. It's one of the most recognized coins in the world. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, the design has remained largely unchanged for decades. By the time 1963 rolled around, Lincoln pennies were being minted in massive quantities. But as we've learned from history, it's not always about how many coins were made, it's about how few of them survive in perfect condition, and how many carry special features that make collectors go wild. The 1963 D penny was struck at the Denver Mint. You can identify this by the small D mint mark located just under the date. Over 1.7 billion of these coins were produced that year, making it one of the most heavily minted pennies of the era. So you might be wondering, how can a coin that's so common be valuable? The answer is in the details. Most of these coins were used in everyday transactions, buying groceries, paying for gas, dropped into payphones and vending machines. Over time, nearly all of them became worn, scratched, dented, or discolored. But a few, a very, very few, were preserved, sometimes by accident, sometimes by collectors who saw something special. These coins stayed in pristine condition for decades, and today they stand out like shining stars in a sky full of ordinary coppers. But condition isn't the only factor that makes a coin like this valuable. The real magic lies in the rare variations and minting errors that occasionally slipped through quality control. Double die obverse errors, where parts of the design appear doubled, like Lincoln's profile or the word liberty, are one of the most prized types of mistakes. They occur when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions, creating a ghosted or shadowed effect that is both striking and rare. Another valuable type of error is a repunched mint mark. In some cases, the D was punched more than once into the die, and the result is a mint mark that looks slightly doubled or offset. Collectors love these errors because they are clear, visual, and verifiable, easy to spot, but hard to find. Then there are coins struck off-center, with missing design details, or even struck on the wrong metal planchet. These kinds of mistakes weren't meant to leave the mint, but when they do, they create incredible excitement in the numismatic community. If one of these error coins also happens to be in top condition, meaning it hasn't been circulated, has full luster, and shows no visible signs of wear, then you have the recipe for a truly rare and valuable coin. Professional grading plays a huge role in value, too. Coins that are graded as MS66, MS67, or higher by agencies like PCGS or NGC are incredibly difficult to come by for the 1963 D penny. The higher the grade, the higher the value, especially when combined with one of these rare minting anomalies. What's fascinating about the 1963 D penny is that despite its age and its enormous production number, there are only a small handful of known examples that combine top condition and unique minting characteristics. That's what turns a coin from a collectible into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Just imagine, what if you've already handled one of these rare pennies without knowing it? What if it's in a collection you inherited, tucked into a forgotten box, or hidden in a roll of pennies from your local bank? These coins can be out there in the wild, and that's part of the excitement. They're not locked in museums. They're out in the world, waiting to be found. So let's answer the big question: what could one of these coins be worth? A 1963 D penny in average circulated condition might only be worth its face value or a little more to a beginner collector. But one of the ultra-rare versions, minted with an error, preserved in flawless uncirculated condition, and professionally graded to perfection, has commanded auction prices that would shock most people. In fact, one of these rare 1963 D Lincoln cents has been valued at an astonishing $170,000. Yes, you heard that right. A penny, just 1 cent, minted over 60 years ago, could be worth more than a luxury car, more than a college education, even more than a house in some places. It's a reminder of how small things, when combined with history, rarity, and a bit of mystery, can become incredibly valuable. So, check your coin jars, look through those old rolls, and don't overlook the pennies in your pocket change. Because one of them might just be your hidden treasure. Third expensive coin, we're talking about the 1966 United States 1-cent coin. A penny that, under the right conditions, could turn out to be far more valuable than anyone could imagine. Now, 1966 wasn't just another year in U.S. history, it was a time of immense social change, political shifts, and cultural revolutions. Amidst all of that, the U.S. Mint continued its operations quietly, striking coins to keep the economy running. But what makes the 1966 penny especially intriguing isn't just the year it was minted, it's what happened behind the scenes, and the rarity that emerged because of it. To understand the uniqueness of this coin, we need to look at what the U.S. Mint was going through at the time. The mid-1960s were marked by a national coin shortage. The public was hoarding silver coins, and the Treasury was scrambling to keep enough coins in circulation. To combat this problem, the Mint made a bold decision in 1965, it suspended mint marks. That's right, from 1965 to 1967, no coins carried a mint mark. That included the Lincoln cent. So whether a 1966 penny was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, you'd never know from the coin itself. That decision might seem like a small footnote, but in the world of coin collecting, it created an air of mystery, and a challenge, because all 1966 cents look the same on the surface. Identifying rare varieties became even more of an adventure for collectors. And hidden among the millions of pennies produced that year are coins that break the mold, coins that were struck with errors, struck on the wrong planchets, or preserved in pristine, untouched condition. Most 1966 pennies were made from a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, and they were intended for regular everyday use. These coins were passed around in grocery stores, payphones, candy machines, you name it. They got scratched, dented, worn down, and lost. But every now and then, one escapes that fate. A few coins were set aside, perhaps by forward-thinking collectors or just by accident, and preserved in their original brilliance. One of the key things collectors look for in a valuable 1966 penny is condition. Coins that are in mint state, meaning they've never been circulated, can carry much higher value. But condition alone isn't what drives the real excitement. It's the rare errors and anomalies that make all the difference. For example, there are 1966 pennies known to have doubling on the obverse side of the coin. This means that the date or the inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust may appear slightly shadowed or repeated. These are called double die errors, and they're incredibly sought after by collectors. Spotting one requires a keen eye, or a magnifying glass, but the payoff can be tremendous. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't aligned properly in the press and part of the design is missing. Even rarer, there are examples of 1966 pennies struck on dime planchets, resulting in thinner, silvery-looking cents that defy expectations. These unusual pieces often go unnoticed for decades, mistaken for damaged coins or factory defects, but when identified correctly, they can become the highlight of any coin collection. Now here's the twist that makes this coin even more exciting. The 1966 penny is part of what collectors call a transitional period. With so much pressure on the mint to produce coins quickly and efficiently, errors and oversights were more likely. This means the odds of finding a mistake in a 1966 penny are slightly better than usual, though still incredibly rare. Combine that with top condition, and you've got a recipe for something truly valuable. And when that coin is authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, its market value can skyrocket, especially if it's confirmed to have a rare error or variation. So, let's cut to the chase. You've listened to the history, the context, the mystery behind this coin. You're probably wondering just how much one of these little copper pieces can be worth in the right situation. Believe it or not, a 1966 1-cent coin that features a rare minting error, is in flawless uncirculated condition, and has been graded among the highest possible by a trusted service. Such a coin has been valued at $170,000, yes, that's right. A penny from 1966. Worth more than a brand new luxury vehicle, more than most people's yearly salary, and more than many homes in small towns across America. All from a coin that originally cost just 1 cent. So what are you waiting for? Dig through your coin jars, check those dusty old piggy banks, and don't ignore that box of change in the garage. Because hidden in that copper might just be a rare 1966 penny waiting to change your life. Especially, we're zooming in on a coin that millions of people carried around in their pockets without ever realizing how valuable it could become, the 1970 D Lincoln 1-cent coin. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, it's just a penny, let's set the record straight. Some of the most valuable coins ever discovered started out looking just like the rest, ordinary, unremarkable, and easy to overlook. But once you learn what makes a specific coin stand out, it becomes a whole new game. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. You're always one good find away from discovering something amazing. Let's rewind the clock to 1970. The United States was in the midst of a cultural shift. The Vietnam War was dominating headlines, the Beatles were breaking up, and America was preparing for a new decade. Amid all of that, the U.S. Mint was busy producing coins like the familiar Lincoln penny. The Denver Mint struck millions of them that year, and they made their way into wallets, change purses, candy machines, and piggy banks across the country. So what makes the 1970 D penny special? On the surface, not much. It looks like any other Lincoln cent. It features Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front, the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, "Liberty," to the left, and the date 1970 with a small d beneath it indicating it was minted in Denver. On the reverse, you have the Lincoln Memorial, with "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum" above it, and 1 cent at the bottom. Pretty standard, right? But the magic is in the details, and for coin collectors, the smallest details can mean the biggest difference in value. For starters, we need to talk about condition. Like most coins, 1970 D pennies were intended for everyday use. They weren't made with collectors in mind. That means they were tossed around, worn down, and exposed to the elements. So, finding one that has never been circulated, one that still has its original luster, with no scratches or signs of wear? That's already a rare thing, but here's where things get really interesting. Among the many 1970 D pennies produced, a small number were struck with rare errors or variations, unintentional changes that occurred during the minting process. These errors can be very subtle or very obvious, but they all have one thing in common: they make the coin incredibly valuable to collectors. One of the most famous and sought-after errors for the 1970 series is the double die obverse. This occurs when the coin is struck by a die that was misaligned during production, causing the design to be stamped twice in slightly different positions. This creates a ghostly doubling effect on the date or letters like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." It's not something you'd notice at first glance, but under magnification, the doubling becomes clear and unmistakable. Other rare errors include off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and even coins that were accidentally struck on the wrong type of metal planchet. These kinds of variations didn't happen often, and many were caught by the mint and melted down. But a few slipped through and ended up in circulation, making them incredibly rare finds today. So if you happen to have a 1970 D penny in your possession, it's worth taking a very close look. Check the date. Look at the lettering. See if anything looks off, shifted, or doubled. And most importantly, check its condition. If your coin has no signs of wear, retains its full mint luster, and is free from dings or scratches, it might be worth submitting to a professional grading service. Collectors and investors alike are willing to pay top dollar for coins like these, especially when they are verified and authenticated. Coins graded MS66 or higher are especially valuable, and if they also include a rare error or die variety, that's where the value explodes. It's crazy to think that something as small and humble as a penny could hold such a massive price tag, but it's true. Coins are more than metal, they're pieces of history, snapshots of craftsmanship, and sometimes, a very smart investment. So how much could a 1970 D penny be worth if it checks all the boxes? If you have one with a dramatic error, in flawless condition, and authenticated by experts, well, hold on to your seat. That small copper coin could be worth as much as $120,000, yes, you heard that right. A penny. Just 1 cent worth more than some sports cars, more than a college education, and definitely more than most of us ever thought possible for a coin that once jingled around in a pair of blue jeans. So don't underestimate the coins in your collection, your family's coin jar, or even the change you get at the grocery store. That next penny you overlook might just be a golden ticket in disguise. Next coin featured treasure is none other than the 1975 United States 1-cent coin. At first glance, it's just a penny. A tiny copper coin that's passed through countless hands since it was minted. You may have even tossed one into a wishing fountain, dropped one in the car console, or left one sitting at the bottom of a kitchen drawer. But here's the twist: not all 1975 pennies are created equal. Some of them are hiding secrets that could make them worth a small fortune. Let's take a trip back to the year 1975. It was a unique time in America's history, post-Vietnam, pre-digital, and deep in the heart of the Cold War era. Gasoline cost less than $1 per gallon, disco was rising, and technology was taking baby steps toward the future. In the middle of all this change, the U.S. Mint continued doing what it's done since the late 1700s, producing coins to keep the wheels of the economy turning. The Lincoln cent in 1975 followed the familiar design introduced in 1909, the face of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that replaced the original wheat ears back in 1959. These pennies were struck in 2 locations, Philadelphia and Denver, with the Denver Mint pennies marked by a small D just below the date. Now here's where things get really exciting for collectors. While millions of 1975 pennies were minted, only a tiny fraction have survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. And an even smaller number feature rare minting errors or unique characteristics that make them incredibly desirable among numismatists. So what should you be looking for in a 1975 penny? Well, let's talk about the elements that drive up a coin's value. First is the condition. Collectors place a high premium on coins that have never been circulated, coins that still shine with that original reddish luster and show no signs of wear, scratches, or fading. These coins are graded by professional services using a scale from 1 to 70, and coins in the MS65 to MS67 range are where serious value begins to emerge. Next is rarity through error. Now, most people assume errors mean flaws, but in the world of coins, flaws are gold. For instance, a double-die penny from 1975, where elements of the date or inscriptions appear slightly duplicated due to a misaligned die, could dramatically increase a coin's value. These double-die errors might be faint, but under a microscope or magnifying glass, they're clear and distinct, and worth a second look. There are also off-center strikes, where the image on the coin is noticeably misaligned. Or repunched mint marks, which occur when the letter D is struck more than once in a slightly different position. Then there are wrong planchet errors, where a penny may be mistakenly struck on a coin blank meant for another denomination entirely. These are incredibly rare, but when they show up, they fetch jaw-dropping prices at auctions. It's also worth noting that some 1975 pennies were produced with slight variations in metal composition due to leftover materials from earlier years or mint experimentation. These subtle differences might not be noticeable at first glance, but experts can detect them with testing, and they can significantly impact value. So how can you tell if your 1975 penny is one of the rare ones? First, take a close look under good lighting. Does the coin show a doubling effect on the letters or date? Is the strike off-center? Does the mint mark look odd, or appear punched more than once? And of course, consider the overall condition. If your penny has barely seen the light of day and has remained untouched by circulation, you could be looking at something very special. If you think you found a gem, your next step is to have it graded by a professional coin grading service such as PCGS or NGC. They'll evaluate every detail of your coin and give it an official grade, something that's essential if you ever plan to sell or auction it. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for. You're probably wondering, okay, but what's the real value of one of these special 1975 pennies? Well, a 1975 1-cent coin in flawless condition, featuring a rare minting error or doubling effect, and officially graded at a high mint state, has been valued at an astonishing $100,000. That's right. A single penny, originally worth just 1 cent, could be worth more than many people make in an entire year. It's a powerful reminder that treasures often hide in plain sight, and sometimes the most overlooked items can become the most valuable. So the next time you come across an old penny, or a jar full of loose change, don't just shrug and move on. Take a moment. Look closely. Because there's always a chance that you're holding history in your hand. Now let its small size fool you, because some of these coins are hiding secrets worth thousands, and possibly much more. Now you might be wondering, what could possibly make a 1-cent coin from 1978 so special? After all, these coins were minted in the millions. They're not rare in the traditional sense, and you might even have one sitting at the bottom of your piggy bank or tucked into a dusty coin jar on your shelf. But in the world of coin collecting, it's not always about how many were made, it's about how few survived in perfect condition, or how few were struck with special characteristics that turned them into collector's gold. Let's take a moment to appreciate the history and design of the 1978 penny. This coin features the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that's been in use since 1909. Above Lincoln's head is the motto, "In God We Trust," with the word "Liberty" to the left and the date, 1978, to the right. If your coin was minted in Denver, you'll see a small D mint mark just beneath the year. Otherwise, it came from the Philadelphia Mint, which didn't use a mint mark for pennies at that time. On the reverse side, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, replacing the earlier wheat design that collectors know so well. The detailed depiction of the memorial is flanked by the words "United States of America" at the top and 1 cent at the bottom, with "De Pluribus Unum" proudly centered above the monument. So far, it sounds like a standard penny, right? But here's where things start to get interesting. First, let's talk about condition. The overwhelming majority of 1978 pennies were spent, handled, dropped, and generally worn down through everyday use. But a tiny fraction, just a sliver of all those millions, were carefully preserved. Maybe they were placed into a collection the year they were minted. Maybe they were set aside by someone who believed they might be worth more in the future. These coins, in mint state condition, untouched by time and circulation, are already rare. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale, and if your 1978 penny is graded MS65 or above, you've already entered collector territory. But when that grade climbs toward MS67 or even MS68, now we're talking serious value. But that's not all. Beyond condition, another major value driver is minting errors, and the 1978 penny has a few that are worth watching for. One of the most sought-after types is the double die, a subtle but visible doubling of letters or numbers caused by a misaligned die striking the coin twice. Imagine the word "Liberty" or the date, 1978, having a slightly echoed appearance. It might seem like a mistake, but to collectors, that's the kind of mistake that can mean money. Another is the off-center strike, where the design of the coin is misaligned, leaving part of the surface blank or cutting off part of the image. These coins are dramatic, rare, and valuable, especially when the date is still fully visible. There's also the broad strike, die cracks, clipped planchets, or even coins accidentally struck on the wrong metal blank. Each of these errors is rare, and each adds uniqueness and value. So how do you know if your 1978 penny is worth more than just 1 cent? First, examine it under good lighting or a magnifying glass. Look for unusual patterns in the design, doubled lettering, or anything off about the shape. Then consider the surface. Does it still shine with original copper luster, or is it worn down? If it looks flawless, or if you notice something unique about the way it was struck, that coin deserves a closer look by a professional grader. If your coin passes those initial checks, your next step is to send it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. Their expert analysis will confirm the coin's condition and any notable errors. And once graded, that little penny becomes an official, certified piece of numismatic history. Now for the big reveal. You've waited this long, and here's why your attention might just pay off. A 1978 1-cent coin, struck in error or preserved in an exceptionally high mint state, and authenticated by professional graders, can command a market value of as much as $80,000, yes, $80,000. For a penny. It sounds unbelievable, but this is the world of rare coins. These aren't just old pieces of change, they are pieces of history, mistakes of the mint, and preserved perfection in a world where time usually takes its toll. So don't ignore those pennies. Every coin has a story, and some are worth far more than face value. Who knows? That old 1978 penny lying forgotten in a drawer might just be your hidden treasure. Last unique coin, we're going to explore the fascinating story of the 1990 United States 1-cent coin. A coin that might be sitting quietly in your change jar right now, and could be worth thousands. Let's take a journey back to 1990. It was a time when the internet was still a mystery to most, the Berlin Wall had just fallen, and grunge music was beginning to take over the radio waves. The United States Mint, continuing its tradition, produced billions of coins for circulation. Among them, the Lincoln cent, familiar, simple, often overlooked. But what if I told you that not all 1990 pennies were created equal? This little coin carries more intrigue than most people realize. And if you know what to look for, you might just find a small copper treasure with a story worth telling, and a value worth much more than a cent. The 1990 penny features the classic design that we've come to recognize. The obverse shows the profile of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. The inscriptions include, "In God We Trust," at the top, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1990, to the right. And just below the date, if you're holding a Denver minted coin, you'll spot a small D mint mark. On the reverse side, we have the image of the Lincoln Memorial, along with the inscriptions, "United States of America, E Pluribus Unum," and of course, 1 cent, at the bottom. So what makes the 1990 penny stand out from the millions of others that were minted that year? It comes down to two words: condition and rarity. First, let's talk about condition. Like most coins in circulation, the average 1990 penny has seen better days. They've been passed from hand to hand, dropped in parking lots, scraped through vending machines, and tossed in piggy banks. But a small number of these coins were preserved, untouched by time and wear. These are the mint state coins. When professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC, mint state coins are rated on a scale from 1 to 70, and a coin that ranks MS65 or higher is considered exceptionally high quality. Now here's where it gets exciting. When these coins are in near perfect condition, and especially when they show rare mint errors, their value skyrockets. Let's look at some of those mint errors. Ever heard of a double die? That's when parts of the design appear duplicated due to a misaligned strike. If you notice a slight doubling in the letters, Liberty, or the date, you could be holding something rare. How about an off-center strike? That's when the image on the coin isn't centered correctly. These errors are visually obvious and extremely collectible, especially when the date is still visible. Then there's the broad strike, where the rim disappears and the coin appears slightly expanded, another desirable error among collectors. And don't forget the holy grail of minting mistakes, wrong planchet errors. That's when a penny is accidentally struck on a coin blank meant for another denomination, like a dime or a foreign coin. These are exceptionally rare, but if you find one, you've got something truly valuable on your hands. Even tiny variations in the D mint mark placement, known as repunched mint marks, can dramatically increase value. These are often missed by casual observers but spotted quickly by seasoned collectors using magnification. So how do you go about identifying a valuable 1990 penny? First, pull out your old coins and examine them carefully under good lighting. Use a magnifying glass to check for doubling, strange shapes, or unusual spacing. Check the color and luster. Copper that still shines bright red may indicate a coin that's never been circulated. If your coin looks promising, the next step is to have it professionally graded. That one step can turn a pocket change curiosity into a certified collectible, ready to go to auction or become the crown jewel of a personal collection. Now, we've saved the best for last. You might be wondering, what's the actual value of a rare 1990 penny? Well, here it is. If your coin is in pristine condition, with an unusual error or a high mint state grade confirmed by a grading service, its value could reach an incredible $50,000. That's right. $50,000 for a 1-cent coin. It just goes to show that treasure doesn't always come in the form of gold bars or ancient relics. Sometimes, it's something as small as a penny, with a big story. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you learned something new or got inspired to dig through your coin jar, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another coin adventure. Who knows? That penny in your pocket might just be your ticket to an unexpected fortune. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your next coin be a rare one.